There's light at the end of the tunnel for Britain's economy, according to the Chancellor Philip Hammond. Unveiling his spring statement this week, he celebrated a reduction in the deficit and, albeit modest, an uptick in growth forecasts. That does not, however, mean the end to austerity. Far from it. Next month, we'll see the second largest annual cut to the benefits budget in a decade. And the Local Government Association says already stretched councils will have their budgets cut in half in the next couple of years. Public services will go on being catastrophically squeezed, and vulnerable people will continue to suffer. It's estimated that by 2022, 37% of children will live in relative poverty in the UK. Where is the light at the end of the tunnel for them? Austerity has created immeasurable pain and it has deepened inequality. And this government doesn't even seem to care.
I don't want to get too crunchy, numbery with us, but I think that Philip Hammond decided there was going to be a narrative in the spring statements this week, and I'm not sure to what extent I believe he's more Tigger than Eeyore, as he put it in the Commons. The truth is that, yes, the deficit is, as a percentage of GDP, on the downward trend, good, but the national debt is still 1.7 trillion, and we still have to service that.
We are still in the tunnel at the moment. We have to get debt down. We've got all sorts of other things we want to do. We've taken a balanced approach over the last couple of fiscal events, using flexibility that we had to continue paying down debt, but also to provide additional support to our public services, to invest in Britain's future, and to reduce taxes.
He's also suggested that in the autumn statement that he will raise spending, but I'm just not confident, Afua, that your hopes of seeing benefits and money to the local authorities who are completely starved of cash going up. One, we look at what's going on in the world. We have to pump up the defence budget. That's going to be the priority of the government. Two, the reason why we haven't got more cash to splash is because actually tax receipts have been falling. Three, I think the corporation outlook is not looking good. I mean, Unilever's now relocating to Amsterdam. I don't want to bring Brexit into this conversation, but I think that...
It's related.
I just think that going forward, the fiscal outlook is getting worse, not better.
But just before I bring you in, that's also what's interesting about this, because the whole point of austerity was supposed to be to shore up confidence in Britain's economy, to attract investment, to show that we're good for business. And you see, there is this growing consensus that austerity in neoliberal countries doesn't work. It's counterproductive. The IMF has said that in countries like Britain with a strong reputation for fiscal good management, it does more harm than good. And that's what we're seeing. We're not seeing strong economic growth. The deficit is falling in relative terms, but it's rising in absolute terms because the economy is not growing.
Before we go to Nick, can we just look at some of these, what you're mentioning in terms of what's being cut? Can we, Nick, is that OK? We're going to see, this is what's actually happening. So if you look at average real-term cuts, 26% cuts between 2010 and 2017. That's in local government. If you go to health, between 2010 and 2016, it's grown by 1.3% per year on average. It used to be 4%. So that's a cut there as well. Education between 2010 and 2016 has fallen by about 14%. And in policing, spending fell again by 14% between 2010 and 2015. I'm aware, Nick, that I kind of...
No problem, Sport. Yeah. Well, let's just put a couple of corrections there. Yes, you're right about Unilever, but it's an accounting exercise. No jobs are being lost in Britain, and at the same time, they pledged to pay in some billions of pounds of investment in the UK as well. So let's go the true, and that must be true because your brother told me that on the radio this morning. So it has to be true.
Right.
Afua, you're right, but the reason that we have recovered the economy, and I'm sorry, there is growth. Growth is likely to be
1.1%.
No, 1.4%. Yes, so it's just to nail this. It's 1.4%, which is 0.1% higher than forecast, but better than we thought. At the same time, there is record employment and there are other economic indicators that we're doing well. That has been achieved like it or not, by austerity measures. That is what... Now, hold on one second. Does that mean now that, having got to where we are, we consider just loosening the purse strings towards medical staff, towards other... Yes, I think it probably does. But your rather all-encompassing, gloomy portrayal, we've blown everything up, all children are going... I know you didn't say all, but I'm a tabloid journalist. All children are living in poverty, we're all going to die, and there's a plague of locusts, is not true. It's financial stewardship that has got us sort of back on track.
But at what cost, Nick? That's the question. You know, I can see on you, and there are lots of contesting and contradictory statistics on this, and I'm not going to go into a kind of Brexit economic growth stat off
this
week.
week.
This week. Look forward to that on future episodes of The Pledge. But there are these really disturbing indicators about how the most vulnerable people in society are suffering disproportionately. I'm just going to show you, since we've heard from Philip Hammond, what John McDonnell has to say.
In every public service, a crisis on a scale we've never seen before. Hasn't he listened to the doctors, the nurses, the teachers, the police officers, the carers, and even his own councillors? They're telling him they can't wait for the next budget. They're telling him to act now.
And it's not just the absolute effects of austerity, it's the relative effects. Look at how the poorest tenth of the population have fared. Their income has dropped by 10%. The richest tenth have only seen a 0.4% reduction. This is deepening inequality. Black people have had an average drop in income by over 5%, twice the size of the drop in income.
I want to respond, but there's steam like a kettle coming out of the ears of someone opposite, so I must yield the floor.
No, but I mean, I'm just listening to him, you know, the man who every fiscal policy, every socialist policy Labour ever produces and puts forward is ripped apart within hours of it coming out because it doesn't make sense. Look at all the other, you know, Labour keep on saying we have to spend, we have to spend. I thought, who are we going to pay for it all? You know, are we going to print money like Europe does every week? Are we going to keep on doing that? Of course,
To be fair, don't forget, my brother actually called for billions more into the NHS the other day.
Yeah, but groups like the IMF say that this actually increases growth so that there is more money.
So that's where the money comes from.
We've got two neoliberals here, Carol. Come on, take them on.
No, I just think the public opinion's turning, and I think I'm a bit of a... I've been sort of a weather gauge on this, or like a weather vane, and in that, during the coalition government, I was a bit hesitant to criticise the cuts because we'd come out of this huge crash and everybody was generally around the table agreeing that we need to cut back on some stuff, right? But actually now, public opinions change, and I've changed along with it, and that is that people are less and less sympathetic to the notion that
it hasn't changed hugely, Magic.
Even Nick has just agreed that we need to listen.
It hasn't changed hugely. Support for cuts to public spending fell to 29% compared to 5% when the question was first asked in 2006. So this is... But that's it's taken 8 years to get that few percent. Because most people understand you have to pay your debt off, because if we don't, we're leaving trillions for our children.
The poorest are paying more.
Socialist policies.
The poorest are paying more, Carol.
Who's going to pay? You know, we tried to save money with, you know, with benefits and stuff. And the IDS is
in the red corner. Come on.
It's the loony lefty over here. Why does everything have to be so polarised? We all want the same things. We want economic growth. I assume we all do not want to see inequality deepen.
That's the point. It's the growth, the economic growth that comes from the stimulation to the economy that will pay for it.